Episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by our friends at SeatGeek and FanDuel. More on them later. But first, we got a game coming up. Thanksgiving first. Everybody get some good food in. Get your stuffing because it's a battle of two teams that are fighting for draft position, unfortunately, between the Patriots and the Giants. But there's still some interesting matchups to talk about in this one. They're flying under the radar, but it's a fun one to talk about if you get the right notes. And to break down this game, talk some tape, I've got Bobby Skinner of Talking Giants, one of my favorite people covering the Giants, does fantastic work on the podcast, on YouTube, breaking down the Giants, letting people know what's going on with them from a schematic perspective. Bobby, thank you for being on. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. I circled this game on my calendar as soon as the schedule came out. One, it's like there's history between the Giants and Patriots, so you always get the memories that come back. But this is the return of Joe Judge to face the Giants, so I'm excited for that. I circled it as a game I'm going to, so I'm excited to see the number 31 versus the number 32 offense this week.
Oh yeah, and okay, so obviously things didn't go too well with Joe Judge. Is there still bad blood? Are people like, all right, whatever, we're past it? What's the sentiment like right now in New York?
I didn't hate Joe Judge, but I wanted him fired, right? I thought he was tied at the hip with Jason Garrett and Gettleman, who he didn't like, and he got in his way. I actually think Judge would actually be a good CEO of an organization if he had the right coordinator. He wanted Brian Dable as offensive coordinator, and McDermott blocked him. But I'm a lot happier with where the Giants are now with Brian Dable running the show at head coach. But there's a little part of me that still kind of loves Joe Judge. So I'm excited to see him in the stadium this weekend.
I don't know if he shares that much love with New England these days, but
that'll be interesting. Who hates Joe Judge more, Giants fans or New England fans? And it might be New England fans.
Sound off in the comments. That is a very good little poll question right there. Speaking of where the Giants are right now, Daniel Jones, unfortunately, out for the season. Tommy DeVito, the local New York kid, a fellow Syracuse alum, has gotten his first two career starts. He was playing before that, but these were the first times that he was the main man. How are people in New York feeling right now about DeVito? And what are your thoughts on how he's played so far this season?
Yeah, it's kind of a fun story, right? Local guy, Italian, right? And he plays into it too. It's kind of a fun story, but everyone realizes that it's a not for a long type of situation. It's like, hey, the Giants are down to QB3. This guy wasn't even supposed to be on an active roster this year. It's been actually cool to see how the coaches have handled him, right? Because versus the Cowboys was his first start. They tried to work some quick game. Their offensive line obviously is an issue, but he just didn't get stuff out on time, took sacks he didn't need. Versus the Commanders, they totally changed up. It was the most aggressive I've seen this coaching staff since their first couple of weeks last year when they were trying to implement some of the stuff that they brought over from Buffalo and Kansas City, where they kind of went boom or bust on in their game plan and ran some stuff often that they had kind of scrapped from their playbook for over a year. And it led to them getting explosives. Now they were playing, I thought, one of the more untalented and most undisciplined defenses in the league in Washington. And that very much may have something to do with it. But that's where I am intrigued in this season, in this game with the Giants, is not what will the end result be versus the Patriots, but how is this coaching staff going to deal with game 3 versus the Patriots defense that might be a little better than the numbers and is at least going to be well coached?
And speaking of that scheme, I was watching it and I couldn't help but think of the Dolphins because you got the outside zone heavy scheme. They had the two explosives off hard play action where you got the motion involved. Even saw a catch, I think it was from Wan'Dale Robinson, where he does that same Tyreek Hill. They got the jet where it kind of comes upfield and then you hitch it down, which is just so tough to defend. Is that the kind, stylistically, they do use a good amount of RPOs. It's not like the Dolphins. But do you see any overlap between what those two teams kind of do? I'm not sure if it was just me watching it. I'm like, this looks a little familiar considering I had to study the Dolphins twice already this season.
Yeah, obviously, the Dolphins have the horses on the outside with Tyreek, and they use that short motion and stuff for him to get open. That Commanders game, it was, again, I think it was really taking advantage of a defense that was selling out to stop Saquon, right? You saw them begin the game. All the runs were negative because they were throwing run blitzes and their linebackers were getting downhill quick. And the Giants adjusted by getting outside the tackles with some pin and pull stuff. And they got Saquon more involved in the receiving game than he had been in a while, too. So getting him involved. And then the play action stuff hit, right? You had the leak with Darius Slayton for the touchdown. They ran post wheel with the fullback being the wheel, and that created an explosive that got them down to the end zone, and then ran some of their bread and butter stuff like mesh and basic concepts like that.
Yeah, we'll get into it later, but the Patriots have not been the most sound defense of late, especially out of their zone coverages. So all those types of plays where, your attention's on Saquon, but then the Giants are one step ahead, they're going to have to watch out for that. Again, Saquon, another guy we'll get to later, but I want to talk about Dexter Lawrence. I tweeted this morning, when you're having the kind of impact he's having at nose tackle, where he's, I think, the second or third highest graded defensive player in the NFL by PFF standards, below, I think it's Myles Garrett, something like Nick Herbig or something crazy like that. But he's putting up a lot of big numbers from a position where you don't usually see people kind of rack up the stats. So do you think he's a legitimate defensive player of the year candidate? Because that's what I was seeing from my perspective. And also, how have the Giants been able to maximize his just freakish level of talent?
Yeah, I don't think he's a defensive player of the year candidate because the Giants are bad, and he doesn't have the sack numbers that match the way he pops off on film, but he does have like all the pressures and stuff. In the day, the voters on those awards kind of look at the sacks, and Dex doesn't really have those to go with him. It's kind of crazy. Dre Patterson, who was been a D-line coach for a long time, he was with the Vikings, came over last year, and they moved him from primarily a 3-tech to that nose tackle, and really started working on his hands and getting his hands and feet working because he was already a pretty good player. But last year is when he just started popping off, and they talked about how like it helped him use like his strength and then working those hands and having less space between him and the offensive lineman to get hands on him. Because you have seen in the past when guys are able to get hands on him, and Jason Kelce is the one guy who really just kind of owns him, and like it can shut down his rush. But it is wild to see the way he works, and he's doing it with being double teamed more. Like especially since Leonard Williams has been traded, he's been double teamed almost 90% of the time, and to still get production and get pass rush wins it's wild to see. I mean, he's done things. He's doing things that no nose tackle has ever done, and that's not said lightly. Like you look at past nose tackles, no one's had the pass rush production that he's been able to put up.
Yeah, and in that scheme where obviously the Giants blitz a ton, they use a lot of 5-down fronts, there are some advantageous situations where you got Dexter Lawrence overmatched on a center, where it's like that guy really has no shot at defending him. But you still got to defend it. We've seen David Andrews have some trouble when he's on an island against more explosive athletic rushers. And even then, like you said, the guy's splitting double teams. He's had some crazy plays where because he's so quick off the ball, it's tough, even when there's two guys drawing their attention to him, to really get him blocked, because not only is he getting off the line faster than you, but he's also crazy quick and insanely powerful. Just absolute handful. I could gush about him all day. Like you said, not a defensive player of the year candidate because of the circumstance, but yeah, go on. Just fantastic.
In the run game too, right? It's like when guys try to hammer him and get him into the get him down a gap, it never happens. And you see the difference when they put the backup in there. It's like, oh my God, it's night and day the difference he's able to. And you've seen a guy like Micah McFadden, who's like one of their stack backers. He's been able to play fast and free and aggressive and use some of his lateral mobility to go out and make plays and make tackles for a loss. And Bobby Okereke, who has more responsibility, and so he has to play a little slower, has really gotten a lot more comfortable realizing, okay, I got this guy Dex who's going to two gap if he's got a single block, and if he's getting double teamed, he's going to keep me from these offensive linemen getting to me.
Okereke, too, another guy. He's been stacking up a lot of really good numbers. Do the numbers translate like what you see on tape? Is it impressive as what the numbers say, or is it more like that front is doing him a lot of favors? Because, it could be either one when it comes to like linebackers having productive seasons.
He's really taken a step after the first few weeks of the season, right, where it was solid linebacker play. But he's been playing fast and again, realizing he has Dexter Lawrence in front of him and just playing with instincts to get downhill. Now, there is times when the Giants don't play from light boxes a lot, but when he does have to play two gaps, the hesitancy can get him in trouble. I like last week, the Giants threw a couple of run blitzes at the Commanders where they had Kayvon jump inside on the tackle, and Okereke had the outside and kind of slow played it and they were able to get out to the edges. So you do get every once in a while some hesitancy to his game, but overall, the stuff he's been able to do in coverage, and then on the down-to-down run defense, he's been the best linebacker they've had in a long time.
Excellent. We'll talk a little bit. A lot of this we'll get back into. This is just the appetizer right now for all the Thanksgiving enthusiasts out there. First play we're going to look at, though, Saquon Barkley. Like we said, we're going to be talking about him quite a bit, and this is going to be an example where the Giants staff, who especially last week did a really good job, like we kind of mentioned, of putting him in positions to succeed and getting him the ball and capitalizing when he was the person everybody was paying attention to and getting it elsewhere. So let's see if we can get that one up.
The mesh traffic one, I got that one.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Actually,
all right, you got me?
Awesome. Yes, sir. All right, what do we got?
Okay. So let me get this out of the way. Mesh is, a concept that most of us all know, right? And it's a man coverage video. The Giants run a bunch of variations of it, right? Where you have these two crossing paths, you have the sit route in the middle, you have an alert out here, and then usually you'll have the running back on this rail route, this wheel out here. And the Giants ran a different form of this, and the Buffalo Bills did this with James Cook last week, and I think the 49ers did with McCaffrey, where they would it's called mesh traffic, right? Where you have all this mesh and you do it in the low red zone. And again, it creates all of this traffic, and Saquon's able to get a touchdown. And what I like about this is that they even had you get a man identifier, right? They motion him. You've got a man coverage. The safety number 31, Cam Curl, comes in. You got a man coverage. They're bracketing him with the linebacker and him because when you get into these mesh formations like the Giants do a ton, like usually you're getting the rail route, right? But if they're running some different type of pass concept where Saquon could be scanning, for protection and leaking out, well, then you put the backer on him, and then none of these receivers are a huge threat, right? You have Daniel Bellinger. He's not a receiving threat. Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Shepard, all guys that can run routes, but none that are really, double worthy in the low red zone. And again, you see it creates all this traffic right here. You don't run a pick, and Jamin Davis has to go over the top, and you get Saquon for a touchdown. You see, and I like the way they run it where, again, you get the look pre-snap. If the A gap's open, that's where Saquon's going to go, right? If they switch this front where you had 94 in here, we'll go through the B gap. But I wanted to just do this one because it was a play that was a touchdown and a concept they used. But the Giants, they run mesh all different ways. Like we know it's a man coverage beating concept, right? And they get it versus man coverage. So even if they had Saquon on the rail route here, right, you might get Sterling Shepard here on this because it's man coverage. But it doesn't work very well versus zone coverage, right? And the Giants have different forms. The way they run this, right? So if you get a zone, right, and that means the sit route right here, you'll have the middle field player here, and then the curl flat or the curl hook defenders will take these meshes. The Giants, what they'll do is they'll sit on these and they'll pivot out right here when you get a zone coverage. So let's just say this was the curl hook defender, and Saquon was out here on a rail route occupying this player, right? This zone defender. Well, then Shepard would just sit on this right in here and turn it into a pivot route, and that's just been a go to them for on 3rd and 4th down, and it's really been if there has been one concept that I've watched them run the most since this coaching staff get here, it has been mesh. No matter who's been at the quarterback. Now DeVito, there was a 4th down earlier in this game where Saquon's open on the rail route, the sit route's wide open, and they don't throw it. But this is a bread and butter concept that the Giants like to run.
See, it's interesting. I didn't know that there was a difference where this gap opens up, you take this one. That was a wrinkle I didn't know about because this was a really popular concept for the Patriots in the low red zone. I'm sure Patriots fans will be familiar. James White caught a bunch of touchdowns on it. Brandon Bolden caught a couple in his last year in New England. And in terms of the adjustments that you mentioned with zone, is that something that if you see the coverage, you adjust, or are those just different individual play calls that they'll have depending on the team?
It's hard to know without being absolute in the room, right? But I do think it is something they give their guys freedom. Like, hey, if you got a zone coverage versus this, turn these drag routes into pivots. but you also see them do it at very similar times. So it could be something, just a tendency breaker, right? Or if you run mesh early in the game and you see the way they're playing it, sit on it, or again, depending on who your team playing. If you're playing a team that likes to get in the zone on third down, then you can do that type of stuff. But they've done that. I mean, again, that's been their number one concept, especially again on the low red zone like we just did, and then the third and manageables, and then fourth down whenever they get put in those spots too.
I mean, if the football gods had like a 5-play sheet, mesh would either be at the top or number 2. It is just one of God's favorite plays in football, and especially against the Patriots defense, where you're going to see man coverage in the vast majority of critical situations, especially in the red area. And one play I picked, we've got some good variety in this show, but in terms of, being worried about Saquon as a receiver, the play that I picked does have something to do with that a little bit. Because the Patriots, now, schematically, they don't really put their linebackers up against running backs or really in man coverage, period. Like, they understand we've got Juwan Bentley, who's a throwback style player at his size. He's like 250, 260. You got Jelani Tavai, who has been really good in coverage, but he's also not really a guy they use in man coverage. That's where the safeties come in. When you have a million safeties on your roster who can play the run and also hang in man coverage, that's usually the assignment you're going to get. So hopefully, we see in those man coverage situations, it's usually going to be like a Jabril Peppers or a Kyle Duggar. But if the Giants are smart, they'll try to attack on early downs, in my opinion, and try to capitalize on the Patriots' base big nickel groupings, where traditionally you could have some opportunities with like a Juwan Bentley against a linebacker. And we actually saw that when the Pats played the Bills. So you're going to see right down here, that's Juwan Bentley against an empty formation with James Cook outside. This is not a good situation for the Patriots. Juwan Bentley, as I said, is a run defender. He can do his thing in zone coverage. He gets to his landmarks. He usually makes the tackle. He mitigates the big damage. But this is a play where obviously you get a concept you don't really like. And actually, you're going to see James Cook again at the bottom. He runs a slant, which again seems like a mismatch. Juwan Bentley doesn't do a bad job initially. He squats on it, knowing that a lot of the time when you see a running back in this alignment, they're either going to run a hitch or a slant. They're not really going to run a diverse route tree. So he anticipates it. He closes, not bad, but James Cook does a great job seeing that Josh Allen is breaking the pocket, trying to escape pressure, scrambling. So what James Cook is going to do is instantly turn this route upfield, and you can kind of see the oh shit moment from Juwan Bentley where he's like, oh God, he's loose, and then it turns into a big play. And, you can make the argument that obviously this is a tough situation. How often are you really going to get a kind of situation where it's a scramble drill and Juwan Bentley is going to have to cover a running back? Well, we actually saw that last week with the Giants. There was a play where Saquon Barkley just went out for a regular check down. DeVito escaped the pocket because he didn't like what he saw. And then there was that crazy catch that Saquon had. Was it the first drive, I believe it was?
First third down of the game.
Yeah, and then you see DeVito buy time, escape the pocket, and he made a great throw to Saquon Barkley, which Barkley somehow came down with along the sideline. Really impressive play by him, and I am getting my screens confused. There we go. But, so with a play like that, could you talk a little bit about DeVito's ability to extend the play, and then Saquon as a receiver? Because he hasn't had crazy production or anything, but clearly the talent is there, and, these aren't situations that you want to see the Patriots linebackers in, obviously.
Yeah, if there's one thing DeVito does is he tries to create, because if you blitz him or if there's pressure, his eyes just go down, right? Mm-hmm. And he's looking to escape in the pocket, and now you get good plays like that, but most of the times it can turn the sacks, and that's why the Giants gave up 9 sacks versus the Commanders. But the Giants have been getting out of empty a lot more since the beginning of the season. I think it's partly to help with their offensive line, and help to face less true blitzes, right, where you have to spread out the defenses a little bit. And they actually run a concept out of it that Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski that shock concept, Haas Y juke, where you get an empty, you got the 3x2, you have the back on the outside runs the hitch, the slot runs a fade, or breaks it in if you have 2 high safeties, and then that little stick pivot route with the tight end or whatever inside player, and then you could put whatever you want on the backside, any type of pass concept. And they've been trying to build off of it because they ran it so much. Like if you that Sunday night football game versus the Buffalo Bills, they ran it 11 times. all on 3rd and 4th downs, and they converted, I think, 9 out of the 11. And
Damn.
one of the ones they didn't convert it, they ran it on 4th down and ended up converting it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and that's really when they introduced that concept, was with Tyrod Taylor coming in. I think it's something that when he came in for DJ, hey, what are some comfort concepts you want? And they're like, all right, we're going to stick with this. This is working. But they've been doing some different things out of it. Like you saw this past week where you had the slot fade, and then you had Saquon run a slant off of it and make a catch on it. So they're trying to introduce more concepts out of empty, so teams aren't just getting ready to play that shock house wide juke concept.
And what's the most popular alignment? Because with Bill O'Brien, he says that basically the inside 3 roles are where you want to put your playmakers. Like the number 3 is where you put whoever can make a play in space, your elusive guy. And then obviously in the seams, you'd like bigger bodies who can kind of win either on a back shoulder or just get deep vertically. So where do they usually put their playmakers, and what do those playmakers do when they're in those roles?
Yeah, you obviously Saquon outside, who would be on the hitch on that, and they were putting Darius Slayton in the slot for that like little slot fade, and then they were swapping Darren Waller and Wan'Dale Robinson on that little stick route. They've been doing with Bellinger. Obviously, Bellinger, they've been running it a little bit less with Darren Waller out because Waller's just a way better receiver than most tight ends, let alone Daniel Bellinger. But they've been kind of running with Bellinger and Wan'Dale. But since Darren Waller's been out, they've been tagging stuff on the backside, whether it's like a pivot and a dig route, the smash concept. So they've actually been getting to the backside of it a little more often with Jalen Hyatt and, usually Wan'Dale Robinson.
Interesting. All right. We got a lot more to talk about. But first, I'm going to send it over to our friends at FanDuel real quick. We'll be back.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you got your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, Bobby, it's no secret that Wink Martindale is one of the most blitz-heavy coaches in the NFL. Obviously, the Patriots quarterback situation is a little funky, but I'm sure Bailey Zappi probably doesn't want to play because when he faced off against the Giants his rookie year in the preseason, I think Wink blitzed more than anybody ever has.
They don't play in the preseason because of that anymore. Because they.
Are you serious?
I know. I think part of it has to do with the whole Brian Flores text message situation.
Oh, yeah.
But Bill Belichick was very mad at Wink Martindale. Like, yeah, why did you blitz our second and third team so often? I remember that game. They just kept on throwing back. You guys kept on throwing back shoulder fades. Like, what else? What else are we gonna do against this?
Whatever he could do. Literally, I didn't even think about that. But when I said it, I was like, wait, they haven't played the Giants. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, but what we have right here is a clip showing what the Giants can do in those situations. I might have actually gotten the wrong one. Real quick, I got the wrong one. 1 second, let me bring that up. This is the beauty of live broadcast, folks. All right, got it up right now. And Bobby, break it down for us.
Okay, so this is a 3rd down and 8, and you obviously know Wink Martindale likes to get everybody on the line and give these cover 0 looks. But usually it's actually less like 0 looks than just a single high safety with everybody on the line, and that's what you see here. Usually you're going to have guys pop out, right? Like you're going to have Kayvon drop out in these droppers and protect the inside. But every once in a while, they are just going to send everybody and play man coverage with the one. And that is what they do versus the Commanders. And I actually think that they're going to, like you said, Bailey Zappi, is he going to be starting at quarterback? Is that like confirmed?
It doesn't. So it sounded like Mac was saying he was preparing to be the starter. All the talk would have made it weird if he's not the starter. So I'm just going to assume that's the deal.
Yeah. And I think that they're going to run some of the different ones where they drop guys out. But I actually think they're going to send the house. And you're going to see on this that even with the Commanders keeping guys in for protection, you're going to see from the back end, they're able to create guys free, and you see Pinnock getting free off the edge. And then you're going to see Kayvon is able to work off a stunt. And that's where we talked about Dexter Lawrence and how he's able to Kayvon's on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, gotcha.
right? And so you're
So,
going to
yep,
see
number
them.
5 right there.
They're see them work some TE stunt up front, but you see Leonard Williams. Sorry, you're going to see the pause it.
Run
Like
for it.
I should have this in my fault. So pause it here, right?
Mhm.
So you see Leonard Williams goes and takes that stack. Now Leonard Williams isn't here, but you fill in the defensive tackle, and then they blitz the Mike Backer to take on the back. So now there's nowhere for Sam Howell to escape, and you have Pinnock coming free off the edge, and then Kayvon free up the middle with the edge. And I think you're going to see this too because the Patriots don't have receivers that really, really threaten you like a CeeDee Lamb or a Terry McLaurin. And with Adoree Jackson most likely to return, I think Wink Martindale will be a lot more comfortable manning these guys up. And again, playing a QB who may deal with some inaccuracies when he is blitzed. So you're going to see, I think, a lot of stuff come off of this too. But when you get into those 3rd and 7s and 3rd and 8s, I really think Wink's going to come and he's going to actually send some of these cover 0 blitzes, which a lot of times Wink is known for cover 0. I actually think he doesn't run cover 0 a ton. He just gives you the threat of it. But this week I do see him, pulling the trigger on it.
It's interesting because the threat can honestly just be enough. Like I know last season, the Patriots, they've shown much more cover 0 this year, but they would show it a lot last year and then drop into cover 2. And I'm interested because you showed the stunt there. I looked it up and it says that the Giants are like bottom 5 in stunt rate. Is that how it shows on the film? Were they not really a stunt heavy team? Is it just when they really send their pressure packages to kind of confuse?
It's on the 3rd downs, right? 1st and 2nd down, they're never sending those stunts. They want to play discipline to their lanes. But when you get on those 3rd downs and again, it's specifically lining up everybody on the line looks, that's when you're going to get it because a lot of times, again, they're only going to rush 4 with the threat of rushing 7 or even 8 at times, but they still want to get guys free, and that's the way that they do it. So, yeah, 1st and 2nd down, stunts are happening. 3rd down, they're going to run a lot more of those.
It makes a lot of sense. So, I guess for my theme, I'm going to keep it a little bit with the Giants defense. This one, I was thinking more big Dex Lawrence because the impact that he can have on your offense. I'm going to take it a little bit to the running game. Let me just find the clip. There we go. And we're going to throw that up here. All right, so the Patriots have been one of the league's best rush defenses this year. They don't give up a lot of big plays as long as they're not playing the Dolphins. And they had their biggest test a couple weeks ago against Jonathan Taylor when they were in Germany. Had a rough first drive. They figured it out and shut him down the rest of the game, really. But one thing that I've noticed when they do play a lot of the outside zone heavy teams, and looking at a lot of the Giants tape, most of the success was Saquon getting outside on outside zone on pin pull, cut a couple of them back inside, but for the most part, it was like outside left, a lot of that. So one thing I've noticed when the Patriots do face outside zone teams is that when other offenses have success, it's usually by getting Jelani Tavai, either reducing him or he doesn't get off his block, and then Juwan Bentley has some trouble when it comes to tracking down the ball carriers. So this is actually going to be a solid rep from Tavai. You're going to get an outside zone with the fullback here going the opposite direction to try to create a little bit of confusion, but you're going to see Antonio Gibson is going to take the run to the right and try to get outside the tackles. And then you're going to see his eyes, he's trying to get outside, but Tavai actually does a good job. He's got his extension, and he's peeking outside saying, you're not going to run that way on me. All right, so can you bounce inside? No, you can't because you got Devon Godchaux right there keeping him from cutting it inside. But then you start to see the hole open up right there because Lawrence Guy gets blocked up. So it's good patience. And Saquon Barkley, one thing I've noticed is he does such a this isn't news. Everybody knows Saquon is him. But he does such a great job of setting up his blockers, whether it's using pace and kind of just making you think he's going to go one way with his eyes, with his body language, and then exploding somewhere else. I noticed that a few times. So right here, you're going to see Gibson get to the second level, and Juwan Bentley can't make the tackle. So one more time looking at Bentley specifically, you see the split action slows him down a little bit. He can't get downhill as quickly as he wants to, and whatever that little stance is as he tries to gather himself. And he's got an opportunity to make the tackle for a short gain. Can't do it. Gibson explodes for a solid gain. These are the kind of things that scare me, especially because the Patriots love these 5-down fronts that put a lot of responsibility on that middle linebacker, especially because Juwan Bentley has been dealing with a hamstring injury. He missed the last game, been dealing with it for a few weeks now. And if he's not 100% and you get Saquon Barkley at the second level with a head of steam, I don't know if Bentley's going to be the one making that tackle. But from your perspective, has that been really where they've had success, is attacking either outside or just inside those tackles? And how do you like the matchup with the Giants front against New England's front?
Sorry, I had my mic muted. With Saquon, it's been about getting him to the second level, right? And it's been a mess, right? And the last couple of games, the rushing game has gone a little better, specifically in the second half. From the first half, they haven't. You saw versus the Commanders, right? And the Giants are going to get a ton of run blitzes. And I don't know if Bill Belichick will do that, but where they're shooting guys in gaps and then having the linebackers fill the gaps that the defensive linemen were originally in. And the Giants just can't handle it up front. Right? They do not have, really, the only guy who can handle it is their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, who's dealing with an MCL sprain, who will play, but is not getting the same drive that he usually gets in the run game. Like, their only really basic zones that they've had success is that outside zone, working solely to the left. Right. And then when they run their counter, that they like to run, teams have been playing aggressive on it and been able to squeeze it down and keep Saquon inside. What the Giants did a lot last year, weren't doing a ton this year, and kind of reintroduced this past week, is that if you're going to throw those run blitzes at them, we are going to work pin and pull, right? We're going to get our receivers pinning down. We're going to get our center and guard or our center and tackle out there on space. And those guys are athletic enough to get out there. And then Saquon's, is obviously the guy that he is, where he's going to set those guys up. And if they're flowing heavy, we're going to cut it back up like the Commanders were. If not, he's going to get outside to the sideline. So the Giants' run game has actually been really bad. It's just been Saquon's been able to muster it up to look halfway decent. But, like, overall, the Giants' run game has been pathetic. I mean, I think it was up until, like, week 8 or 9 where the best game of the year was week 1, where Saquon on a yards per carry average was just 4.0. So, but with Saquon, it's about the offensive line doing enough just to get him to the second level, and that's where obviously he's able to, make his magic happen.
I'm also curious your thoughts on rookie center John Michael Schmitz, because he's no PFF darling. They don't have him graded very highly, but on all the big runs, I feel like, not all, but a lot of them, I feel like he's the one pulling, which you don't usually see from the center position. It's a really athletic feat to be doing and getting out there for them. So how is he, the pass blocking, I know, for the Giants has not been good overall, but has he at least shown some promise in terms of as a run blocker, or maybe has he shown you a little flash here and there in pass protection?
In the run game, I think he's been fairly consistent. Now, I think he gets a little sloppy getting to the second level. But if you're trying to get a defensive tackle down a gap, no one works it better than him. He's a former wrestler, works leverage, and he knows how to get push on guys, even if there's a little bit too much lean to it. So in the run game, it's good. And again, you mentioned letting him pull. That's something they did last year a lot with John Feliciano. And maybe that's something that they're just newly comfortable with him as a rookie. And pass blocking, I actually think it's been better than has been graded out, because you see good reps, right? Good hand replacement, good hand usage, like good reps. But he does have a few bad ones per game. But outside the command, this past game was definitely his worst as far as a pass protection standpoint. But you see no mental mistakes in the pass protection. Like, he gets it. He's calling out blitzes. Sometimes he's pushing, the guards where to go. It's just
the play that you had on Twitter. That was hilarious with the guard who was trying to pull when he looks back at Saquon. That was amazing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh shit. I did forget I put that one on Twitter. That one was there was another one with the same guy where I was pointing out how good JMS was picking up because the safety was 10. It was like 8 yards over the nickel, and JMS pre-snaps like, okay, they're probably sending a nickel blitz. Calls it out, and the guard doesn't see it. And he's literally blocking the nose tackle and pushing the guard, like, get off, go block, go block the 5 tech who's coming inside, and then there's going to be a nickel blitz. So he's got like it down mentally. It's just about sometimes these NFL defensive tackles can throw them around a couple times a game.
Yeah. So we're going to keep it on the Giants offense. Now we got to play. We're actually going to spotlight Tommy DeVito. Give the guy a little attention. It's not going to be for a good reason, but we're going to talk about him a little bit. Bobby, what you got for us?
So this is like their favorite play action chunk play concept, right? Where it's just under center, usually at a 12 personnel, but you do have an 11 on this. And you're going to run the deep post, usually with Jalen Hyatt, and then you'll work with Darius Slayton, who may or may not be playing in this game, on the over route. And it's made to attack safeties. And last year they would only throw the over right here with Darius Slayton. But if your linebackers play with depth and that middle field safety comes crashing down, right, that's not there, and then you're forced to scramble and check it down. Now with Jalen Hyatt, the speed that he has, they've started throwing the post and had success with it. But now the way that the Giants are playing, if you can play it and then pause it when that safety declares, I think it's that 20. So 28 doesn't that top safety declares with Slayton, right? And at that moment, Tommy DeVito decides, I'm throwing the Jalen Hyatt. That safety declared, that's going to be open, and I'm trusting that Hyatt's going to beat 28. But how teams have adjusted to this, and the Raiders had an interception on this too, that backside corner, again, whether you're in quarters like this or in cover 3, your two most basic zone coverages, that backside, they will declare and stop them from throwing the over route, even if your linebackers aren't playing with great depth. And they'll have that backside player go and play the deep post. And because of DeVito's arm talent, it gets a little erratic and can float a little bit on these deep furrows. There's been he's had 3 interceptions, I believe. 2 have been on this exact same thing, where that backside corner goes and makes the interception on that deep post.
And that's going to be a good opportunity. Now, it could be a good opportunity for the Patriots because this is the kind of replacement coverage that you see from them a good amount, because typically their defense is well coached and they do a good job of like passing those kinds of concepts off, especially because like a Yankee, you see it every single week and you don't want to just get burned by it. But J.C. Jackson, who he didn't play, he didn't travel at all to Germany. He was benched for the first couple of drives against the Commanders because since he got back to New England on pretty much a weekly basis, like you see at least one play, sometimes a couple, where he busts a coverage, where, it's some kind of adjustment where there's a crosser and he's supposed to bail out and take something coming across the field and he doesn't. Or, there's something that isn't quite right in the scheme and it's led to some big plays. So this is the kind of situation where, if maybe they get things back on track and they're a well-oiled machine, the way we've seen in the past, these can be opportunities to get turnovers. The Patriots have a pretty good turnover streak going right now. But if you don't do that, and there's even one piece of that puzzle that's not in the right place, that interception may turn into a big play because you don't have the right bodies in the area. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, speaking of that, because I've noticed his interceptions or his turnover-worthy plays, almost all of them are just him trying to make a play, throwing deep, and like you said, they just kind of hang up. How aggressive is he? And is it the kind of situation where there are certain pockets or certain, footwork situations for him where the ball just dies? Or is it really, he just needs to understand what he can and can't do at the NFL level?
I think it's at like that 45-plus yard range. Again, it flutters a little bit, but I think it's mostly just a little bit of inaccuracy. Like that, he's on the hash. You're meant to throw that ball up the hash, and it just kind of goes to the left. It will move to the side. But he is aggressive, right? And maybe this is me after watching Daniel Jones the past couple of years be one of the least aggressive quarterbacks in the NFL. But even simple stuff like when you're running a 3-level sail or flood concept and you get it versus man coverage and the man coverage is good, just throws the go on it. And not having hesitancy when you do have the whole shot on the corner of that or on a smash concept if you're playing, a cover 2 type coverage. So it's not like overly aggressive, but he basically is throw or sack, right? Where if it's there, he's going to throw it. If not, he is scrambling around taking a sack. And if you're working quick game, there's inaccuracies on the throws, and it's just the timing of it consistently gets messed up. Where I think the Giants that's where we talked about earlier, where they kind of took a boomer bust mindset versus the Commanders, because hey, he's going to take sacks and have misses on the quick game. We might as well go down taking some shots.
Yeah, well, the Patriots pass rush has, I don't know if you've heard, they've been lacking a little bit since Matt Judon went down. Christian Barmore's trying to do his thing and, keep the group respectable, but just sounds like for the Patriots, it's going to be heavily on the coverage to be able to create those opportunities and give the defensive line some time to actually get to the quarterback. Before we get to our next breakdown, real quick, going to send it to our friends at SeatGeek. We'll be back. Self-proclaimed Swiftie, I have been dying to see Taylor Swift perform in person, but I'm going to have to do so at a reasonable price once the season's over. And to find the best deal on Taylor Swift tickets, I use today's sponsor, SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticket app. There's more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. I actually used SeatGeek last year to see a Clippers game with my girlfriend, and with the NFL, NBA, and NHL seasons in full swing, you don't want to miss out, and SeatGeek has your tickets to every single game. Plus, artists like Travis Scott are on tour right now. They put all the tickets across the web in one place to make sure you're getting a good deal. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And you know I came through for you guys. Use my code DREAMERSPRO for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code DREAMERSPRO. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. All right, so the last clip we got to break down for you guys, because, the Patriot situation's up in the air, and regardless of who plays, I think we're going to see something close to the Patriots dusting off the game plan from that 2021 Bills game where Mac threw like 3 times. I think it's going to be a lot of the run game, and we even saw that against the Colts. Ramondre, I think Mac Jones on when it was first or second down and they weren't in extra long territory, he only threw 4 times. They were trying to run the ball down the Colts' throats because, one, the offensive line gave up 5 sacks in the first half. And then, even though Mac was solid in that first half, the second half, anytime he reached red zone, for some reason, his brain left his head and he made a lot of egregious mistakes. So I'm going to focus here on the rushing attack, especially because it's with the Giants' aggressive scheme. There's a good chance that they're going to allow some penetration. And there's Dexter Lawrence as well. So you never know what could happen. You got to be prepared for anything. And this is an example, I thought, of Ramondre Stevenson showing what I think he's done a much better job of recent weeks, is the short area quickness, the really fast decision-making, and then finishing runs and having some physicality and some bursts. Because he struggled early on, but really has been doing better, partially because, as you can see, Mike Nwenu is now at right tackle, and City So has been pretty solid in his spot. So what we're going to see, downhill run like we usually see with the Patriots, it's draw, but because of the stunt, City So is going to miss the tackle, and he's going to get right into the backfield. You see City looking anywhere but where he should be looking, and then you got Dio right in the middle. Ramondre doesn't even have the ball yet. But quick decision maker here. You're going to see him bounce and get just enough to shed that tackle, and then also outruns 54, and then the finish. This is my favorite part. So first, the ability to turn what should be a significant negative play into a solid gain, bounce it outside of Hunter Henry, and then Zaire Franklin, former teammate of Bobby Okereke, gonna take a big hit at the end. Ramondre did a great job all game finishing his runs. Just one more time, just for fun. Bounce out of contact, get outside, and then finish. These are the kind of runs, these body blows that we're going to need to see consistently against the Giants, because you're going to have to wear this defensive front down, considering the pass game may not have a really big role. How likely do you think it is that if the Patriots really do lean into the ground game, we're talking like 30 or 40 rushes in the game, do you think they can have success against this Giants front?
Yeah, a lot of teams have had success versus the Giants run defense, and especially with Leonard Williams leaving the team. James Conner, that looked like every James Conner run versus the Giants, where he would make a guy miss and then was able to get outside. And the Giants do struggle outside the tackles, where Kayvon is an inconsistent edge setter. You see some great ones, right, where he sets an edge, makes a stop. But you also see some times where he gets moved off the ball. And then Jihad Ward, who's kind of known as a run defender, good run, like a solid, but he doesn't have the athleticism to finish plays. So you're going to get him in situations, like you said, like, the Cowboys ran a fake fullback dive, halfback toss. Jihad Ward's one-on-one with them, and they end up having a 20-yard run. And you also will see, again, so they'll have inconsistent edge setting, and then the linebackers can be a little hesitant getting outside the ball, outside of those edges. So that is the way to beat them. If you're going to go up the middle, like the Giants are going to play from stack boxes consistently, you're going to have Dexter Lawrence, you're going to have Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden filling aggressively. But outside the tackles is where they have continuously struggled. It starts with the edge setting, but also the Giants DBs, which this is somewhere they are horrible in the run game, right? They got a lot of young guys, and Deonte Banks, their rookie, very bad in the run game. Cordell Flott, He's like 170 pounds. He struggles in the run game. So they're actually specifically their corners, their safeties, McKinney and Pinnock are pretty good. McKinney actually he could play linebacker for them if they needed him to in a pinch. So it's there. Once you kind of get to that second level on the outside, that's where you're able to make plays because their corners can't get off blocks and they also are bad tacklers.
It's funny you say that because last week was the first time in a while that we saw the Patriots have success getting outside the tackles with outside zone, with toss plays. Could that be something that you see the Patriots do where they say, hey, we're not trying to mess around with the inside of this defense consistently. Let's try to force the cornerbacks to tackle and make some plays on our big backs.
Absolutely. And then when Dexter Lawrence is off the field, I mean, run at their, backup nose tackle and DJ Davison, right? Like, and I posted a clip this week. It's like, just, hey, this is what happens when Dexter Lawrence isn't off the field. One, you get your defensive tackle where they can double him and move them where they want. And then also it makes it a lot harder on your linebackers. So when Dexter Lawrence is off the field, like it'd be an auto run call for me. I don't care what type of front the Giants are showing. And with on the deck, you want to get those outside.
Yeah, Mac Jones and Hunter Henry both said they like using tempo. So hopefully, if they see Dexter Lawrence on the sideline, no huddle, keep him there. Just try to run as much as you can and exploit that matchup. Last question I have for you, because you mentioned Kayvon has been inconsistent as a run defender. Is there something the Patriots can specifically exploit? Like, is there just a tendency there? Or is it a mental thing where you really don't know what you're going to get from him from snap to snap?
It's just he plays a lot of snaps. So sometimes it's just some inconsistency in the run game. But I want to ask you, because Kayvon has become a guy who takes advantage of bad tackle play as a pass rusher. But good tackle play basically is like, hey, just don't overset and you can work him around the corner. What are we getting from the Patriots with that?
Yeah. So Trent Brown, he got rolled up on in week 7 against the Bills. It was bad. Like, you saw him like the kind of thing where you scream in pain. It was tough. He played the next week in Miami. Significant drop in play. He'd been playing like one of the best offensive linemen, let alone tackles in football before that. And then you saw the drop. He even acknowledged that he couldn't play the way he wanted to. So he's missed the past couple games. Now he's been at practice. He was moving a little bit slower. So I'm not confident that he's going to play, but he participated, which is a pretty big sign because he wasn't really participating before. So if he's out there, I think that Thibodeau's probably going to be in trouble. There's always like a couple snaps because like Trent's 6'8", 350 pounds. Every once in a while, he has a miss that looks horrible just because he's so big. And it's like, if you get past him, he's just going to stand there. He's like, what? I'm not going to like bend over to try to make up for it. Like, I'll get you the next snap. If it's Connor McDermott, that's where things get a little trickier. He's been solid, especially for somebody who missed a lot of the season. He was drafted by the team. It had a couple other stops, unheralded guy, but he's been solid. But I think Thibodeau could probably get the better of him. And then Mike Nwenu, if he's on the right side, God bless. Mike Nwenu is a guard who was one of the biggest maulers at his position before he moved to right tackle. And the Patriots basically like athletic guards at right tackle anyway. And he's been there before. It took a while for them to actually say, okay, our tackle situation's terrible. Here you go. But he's been fantastic. PFF loves him. And, he's had his struggles because he's a bigger guy. He had offseason ankle surgery. Hasn't been a huge detriment recently, but you definitely do kind of like a Trent Brown see. There's some reps where his foot speed and his ability to get outside, fast guys can get to him. But for the most part, especially in the run game, if you got Trent Brown and Mike Nwenu, they should be okay. If Connor McDermott's there, might be an area that you could exploit.
Yeah, I like Onwenu a lot. It'll be interesting to see that. I think that's another good, like for the Giants fans, a barometer for Kayvon, because I said Mekhi Becton was like a good, because I like Mekhi Becton. I think he's just been dealing with injury issues, and I think he got injured again this past week. I thought that would be a good barometer, and Kayvon had 3 sacks against him. So Kayvon is like, if the tackle gives you the hands, right? And like I watch Andrew Thomas every week. He's what gets me through a season. Like what he does is he's like, I don't punch, right? I use a circle technique where I show hands and I pull them, and then I punch, because pass rushers, what do they love to train on? Using their hands. And Kayvon, if you give him hands, he will be able to work, kind of get you off balance. And then if you're not, the fastest feet in the world, which I don't think Trent Brown does, he will be able to get the corner. But Trent Brown, I do think is a solid player, from watching him in the past. So I think this is another good barometer game for Kayvon, where it's, hey, You're not going against the best tackle in the league, but you're playing against someone who's very capable of being good.
And Kayvon wins with those swipes, right? I think I remember seeing the sacks that he got against Becton. Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Like, he might get a win on Trent again, just because he likes to switch up his punches. Like, sometimes he'll give it to you, then take it away. Sometimes he goes right out there and he wants to be the aggressor because he's so big. And he knows that, hey, as long as I'm playing inside out, you're not getting through me. I'm not letting you inside. And it kind of makes guys a little more predictable. But that's definitely going to be a fun matchup to watch. But I've kept you long enough, Bobby. I've had a blast. I hope you did as well watching. This has been very informative. Thank you so much. Please let the people know where they can find all the fantastic work you got coming out this week.
Talking Giants, you're getting ready to jump on that for our preview pod that'll come out Friday. So I don't think it'll be as fun. Honestly, I kind of want to do this show now. I like doing the 3 plays of film. I might end up stealing that idea from you.
Feel free.
Next year. But you'll be on there for that, and then hey, we'll see. This is, and we didn't talk about this at all, and I kind of hate talking about this because there's a season, and then when the season's over, you can talk about everything that's not the season.
Right.
This is a huge game for the draft. Loser is in the top 2 category. Winner is basically out of it, which is this is what most fans are watching for, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a weird spot to be in, especially like now that I'm on the beat and I'm actually covering these guys face to face, because you really understand that these are guys putting their bodies on the line to entertain you. And it's one thing when they've got the aspirations for the playoffs and everything, but now you're in this weird limbo where it's like, okay, evaluation is still important. You want to see what guys are fighting, especially for the Patriots, who are going to have a pretty significant rebuild probably. They got a lot of guys who are probably not going to be on the team next year. So you want to see who's playing well for you. You want to get an idea, and you can't tank in between the whistles because you're going to get hurt. This is too violent of a game. But yeah, I mean, Patriots fans should not be, and Giants fans, frankly, shouldn't be rooting for a win because these are huge opportunities to get high picks and building blocks for your entire franchise. If you get a top 3 pick, you're getting 4 selections in the top 100. Like, that's nothing to, take lightly. And yeah,
it's been titled a must-lose game for both teams by some people I've seen on social media. So.
That's what it is. And yeah, it tears me up inside, man, because you want to root for these guys like as players and people. But hey, it is what it is. Rooting for a loss for the Patriots. I hope the Giants have just the best performance they've had all season. I'm sure Patriots fans are with me there.
We hope Joe Judge gets his revenge.
Yeah. Oh, maybe not. I hope the Giants get their revenge on Joe Judge. I'll put it that way. But once again, Bobby, thank you so much. I appreciate you, my man. Got to have you back on any other chance we get if these teams face off or draft season, what have you. You've been a blast. Thank you all so much for watching. Appreciate you tuning in as always. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll see you next